Hey everybody. Alright, here we go. We're live on Instagram and YouTube. Hey Aqib, hey Raval. Alright, so just continuing where we left off. If you remember, we projected the textures from VFace to MetaHuman, and this is the result. You can see there are certain areas of the texture that need to be cleaned. For example, around the eyes, around the lips. And the cleaning happens inside Marie. But before importing the textures to Marie, I'm just going to do some basic cleaning inside Photoshop. So I'm just opening the texture in Photoshop. Hey Isaac, thank you. Hey Mr. 3 Designer. Also guys, please let me know if I'm lagging, because I changed some of the settings of the OBS studio, so I'm not sure if I'm streaming as smooth as before. So if there is any delay or lagging in my video or my voice, please let me know. Alright, so I opened the texture in Photoshop. First of all, you can see we have a transparent layer. We don't want the layer to be transparent. So I'm making a new layer and just painting using the bucket tool. Just adding the flat color layer. Streaming is good as usual. Okay, great. So now to clean the texture inside Photoshop, I'm just using the lasso tool to select those areas that I want to clean. For example, here around the eyelid, just selecting roughly, doesn't have to be perfect. Just roughly selecting that area, both eyes. Don't select the areas that are clean, just the ones that needs to be cleaned. Around the lips. I think the rest of it just looks okay. I'm also selecting some of the borders are not clean because the model wasn't perfectly wrapped around the base mesh, so that's why we have these blank areas. So okay, now also selecting two squares on each edge. I'll explain why, but right now I'm making another layer, and again using the bucket tool, just making a layer that's the same as the selection that we had for the spots that need to be cleaned. All right. So also here, I think we need to select these two. Okay, perfect. Now I'm holding on Control key and clicking on the layer that I just created. Now we have the selection again, but I'm making the albedo layer active once more. So now what we want to do is use, if in the topper menu of Photoshop, if you go in edit, there's this option called fill, or you can just click on Shift and F5. If you click on fill, there's this new window that opens, and Photoshop has a tool that, as you can see, it's written content aware. It means that if you delete these areas using this tool, Photoshop interpolates using the surrounding map or surrounding textures to filling those gaps. So use the content aware and click on OK. Takes a few seconds or minutes depending on your computer. Now if I zoom in, you can see that it's done a pretty good job cleaning everything. I mean, it's not perfect. Some of these textures are still, they look stretched, so we can just repeat the same process. Select again and Shift F5 once more to see if we can do better. I think now it looks a little bit better, so let's leave it at there. Okay, I think now it looks pretty clean to me. It's not ready for render, but the base texture looks pretty clean. Now, why did I save this selection as a new layer? Because if you remember, we also have a different map for multi-channel or the displacement. But This one is hard to see what's going on. So what I'm doing, once again, making a new layer. We don't want the layer to be transparent, so I'm just picking a color, using the bucket tool to make it flat. Now, because here it's hard to see what's going on, it's a 32-bit map. You can't really tell the details. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to use the same layer that I created here based on the selection, and I'm just dragging it to the multi-channel map. It asks you, because the depth is different between these two. One is, the albedo map is 16 bits, but the multi-channel map is 32 bits. But it doesn't matter, you can just click on yes, proceed, and now we have the same map. We have the same layer here as well. Let's bring it forward. And I added these little squares on the corners because it makes it easy to just snap it to one corner. So you're sure now that it's standing on the same spot. And once more, holding on Control key, clicking on the layer, and edit, fill, content aware. Okay. Takes a few seconds to clean the texture. I mean, it's hard to see, but I think we just have to trust it. I mean, it usually does a good job. So now these two textures, albedo and multi-channel, are ready to be imported inside Marie. Let's right click on one of the layers, flatten image, because we don't want the layer, we don't need a layer, just a flat image would do. Both albedo and display. Let's hide this. Flatten. Now let's... Also, the albedo map doesn't need to be 16. We just need 8-bit, just works perfectly. So I'm going to, in the top menu, image, mode, changing it to 8-bit channel. And it just converts the texture to 8-bit. For albedo 8-bit is enough, but for displacement multi-channel you need to keep it as 32. So I'm just exporting to use it inside Marie. Just save as. I'm going to name it albedo clean. Save. We don't need any image compression, just leave it none. Don't change anything, just click on OK. There you go. And for the multi-channel, again, save as multi-channel underline clean. We save it as EXR. Compression none. Okay. Now we're done with Photoshop. Let's move on to Marie. Lovely to see you here. Did you ever try Houdini for long hair grooming? No, I haven't used Houdini, Zaya, because I'm happy with XGen in Maya. I don't need to. Hey Mufa, thank you. Alright, we're in Marie. So I don't know if you're familiar with the interface inside Marie, but it's not very complicated. It might look a bit different, but It's not hard to learn. Mari is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. You have one box for layers, another one for channels, one for brushes, brush menu, and this one is for tool settings. And this is the list of the projects that I've worked inside Mari. But for now, we need to click on File, New, or just Control N, a new window appears. Project name, let's name it Paco. Geometry, just need to select the geometry. Let me okay, geometry is inside a wrap folder. It's MetaHuman. Mapping scheme, we're not changing anything here. Just leave it as it is. Channels, you can change this later, but let's just see how many channels we need. We need the base color, but I'm renaming it to albedo. Size 8K 8192. Color space raw. I'm just leaving it at raw because we don't want to use any color space inside Mari, just raw. We need a specular. Okay, 4K for a specular is enough. Raw, roughness again, raw. Also, if you scroll to the right, you can also change the depth. For the albedo, we need 8-bit. For the specular and roughness, also 8-bit. If you scroll down, we also have a bump. We don't need a bump. We need displacement, and change the resolution to 81. Size, sorry, not the resolution. Size to 8192. Color space once again raw. And for the depth, for the color, for the displacement, we need 32. So once more, albedo 8K 8-bit, specular 4K 8-bit, roughness 4K 8-bit, displacement 8K 32-bit, and all the color spaces are raw. But we can always change this later, so if you don't want to worry about this right now, just leave it as is. For the color settings, for the category, doesn't really matter because we're not using the material, we're not using any shaders inside Mari, so it doesn't matter. For the color settings, again, doesn't matter. You can just disable color management. Lighting doesn't matter, just geometry and channels. And then click on create new project. Hi IMB, hey Whiskey. Why did you change the albedo from RGB to RAW? Because we don't need any color spaces inside Mari. We're just working on the raw texture. Alright, so this is the model, and we have 3 different channels. You can see here's the channel box, albedo, displacement, roughness, specular. If you click on any of those, you can see the description or the settings of that channel. And this is the layer box. So every time you add a new channel, that channel automatically adds a base layer which is just a flat color. It doesn't have any data. So each of these channels has a base layer. And now we need to import the albedo texture that we cleaned inside Photoshop to Marie. And we are importing it to the same base layer. Just right click on it and go to import into current layer. A new window appears. You just have to find the path to texture, which is inside the wrap, and it doesn't show any files because there's a template here. You need to delete the template. Just select R and delete. Now you can see the texture that we exported from Photoshop. So resize, just don't change anything. Just click on the texture you want to import and import all patches. It doesn't show because you need to change what you want to see inside the viewport. On the left sidebar, you can see we have a few tools. It looks like kind of like Photoshop. One of these tools is this. It's a sphere, orange sphere with an eye icon on top of it. If you right click on it, you can change what you want to see inside the viewport. By default, it's already on user shader, so I'm going to change it to current channel because I only want the viewport to show the channel that I'm working on. Now you can see that we have the albedo texture applied to the model. There's another orange globe that changes the lighting on the model. For the albedo, I usually just change it to flat because in basic, which is by default set to basic, you can see that there are lights, highlights, and shadows that make it difficult to see all the details of the map. So if I want to zoom in here to see what I need to clean, you can see it's kind of hard to distinguish between shadows and darker and lighter colors. And for that reason, I'm just changing it to flat, or you can just click on F1, F2. You can just switch between different lighting modes. So now we are ready to work on the texture to make it ready for render. Do you find yourself using those large maps 16 to 32 often and wondering how they affect performance and how fast do they export? Would it be quicker to use UDIMs plus multiple 8K maps, for instance? If you use multiple UDIMs, for example, 2 8K maps compared to one 16 or 32K map, it doesn't really change that much because it takes the same amount from your RAM. If you're rendering on your GPU, it takes the same VRAM, so it doesn't make a huge difference. But for color texture, it's not really necessary to go high. You can just work in, even 8K is super high for albedo. Most artists just export in 4K for albedo. But for displacement, if you have super close-ups, yes, you can see better results if you export in higher maps, because displacement is something that carries a lot of details. So as you zoom into close shots of your model, it makes it easier to see if it lacks any detail. But for albedo, it doesn't really matter as much. And I don't really use beyond 8K. I haven't used. I mean, luckily I haven't had any client who asked me for sizes beyond 8K, but it's very rarely used. What is the difference between 8-bit, 16-bit and 32-bit? Because I'm often confused on assigning which texture should be which. The difference is a spectrum of color that you can find in that texture. It's not easy to explain. It takes a whole video for me to explain and for you to understand. But just know that color textures, 8-bit is enough. 16-bit is not used. I mean, it's either 8-bit or 32. 32 is for displacement, and because displacement, if you use 8-bit for displacement, it gets really jaggy. If you have, for example, if you want to work on the skin details, it doesn't have enough gradient. It doesn't have enough enough shades of gray to transfer those details into a map or export those details into a map. For better texture, can we increase UDIM or not? You can increase UDIM, yes. And ZBrush doesn't really support beyond 8K, as far as I know. So if you want to export beyond 8K, you probably need to break down your UV into UDIMs, yes. Alright, so if you wanna, let's look at the reference. You can see we have some skin blemishes and dark spots that doesn't necessarily match with the V-Face texture in XYZ map. So we need to make some changes for the texture to match the reference. It doesn't have to be 100% identical, but we're just gonna do our best to see how far we can push it. But I'm not going to make any changes on the same layer. I'm making a new layer. In the layer window, if you click on the first icon which says add new layer, it adds a new layer, just like Photoshop. You can add new layers and naming it clean. Also renaming this to V-Face, so I know that this is the same map that we imported from V-Face. And this is the map that I'm going to paint on. Please share to YouTube. It's on my YouTube already. If you want to watch later, you can just skip right now and follow on YouTube. Alright. So we have the brush tool. Brush tool is to add just new colors on top of the texture. For example, right now if I zoom in, you can see I'm adding new details on top of the texture, but we don't want to add flat colors on the map. The type of brush that we want to use is not the basic painting brush, but there's another brush. If you right click on this second icon, which looks the same as, kind of the same as the basic brush, but if you right click on it, we also have another tool called Clone Stamp, which is just the same as Photoshop. If you have worked with Photoshop, with a stamp tool in Photoshop, it's just the same, just functions the same way. And what it does, it copies texture from one spot and you can paint it somewhere else. Let me show you what I mean. So first, let's change the brush, because the brush is right now set to this. This is not the brush that it looks too sharp. Doesn't work best with albedo. You can just change the brush. If you go to Marie, there's some default brushes that come with Marie. The one that I always use is this one, Flow Linear. Just double click and it selects it. Now to use this brush, if I just click, it doesn't do anything, because first you have to pick a spot. You have to tell it, okay, I want to copy colors from this spot and paint it here. And for that, you hold on Control key and then click on the spot that you want to copy. For example, I want to copy this spot here, and it makes a new circle around it. If you paint somewhere else, paste it. But now it doesn't do anything, because you have to also change something else, because we are working on a second layer. We're not painting on top of the same layer, and for that you need to change the source in this top bar menu or top toolbar. This is a drop down. If you click on it, you can change the source of this stamp, Clone Stamp tool. By default, it's always set to current paint target, meaning that it only picks colors from the same layer that you're painting on. But we want to pick colors from the first layer, which is the V-Face layer. And for that, we need to change the source to Albedo V-Face Paint. This is the layer that we want to copy from. Now, if I repeat the same steps once more, just holding on Control key, click on this spot, and now if I paint, you can see that it's painting from that area. You just copied these forehead lines or these wrinkles, folds from here to here. So this is the tool that I mostly use inside Marie to clean my textures. Alright, now we just need to see what we want to change. First of all, we don't need these folds or wrinkles to be baked inside the texture, inside the color texture, because this is something that we add to displacement. We don't want to fake it with a color texture, and also we don't know if the wrinkles match with the texture in XYZ subject. You can see that here the folds look completely different, so we don't really need these lines. So first of all, we just use the Clone Stamp to pick colors from here to Just doing our best to hide this line using the surrounding colors. Is it too late? Oh, it looks very good. How long have you spent in Mari so far? It's the first stream that we're working with Mari, and it's also on YouTube, so if you want to watch later, no problem. Also change the spot that you're picking colors from. You don't want to make it look identical to any other area of the texture. We're mixing from. You can see that I'm picking one from here, one from here, so that it doesn't look exactly the same as any other spot, to make it look more organic, and so it's not noticeable, the changes that we make. We just want to make it disappear. Doing the same with this one. Let's make some changes to the brush settings. Here you can see the settings for the brush tool. The opacity, if you're using a pen pressure blend, it makes it easier to work with the airbrush. For the flow, we don't need the pressure blend, just for opacity it works, but for the flow you can just keep it, let's just keep it at 1. You can see now it's much sharper. Because we increase the flow. I'm constantly changing the position of the stamp to randomize the output, because as I said, we don't want it to look identical as any other spot on the map. Also, the forehead lines or the wrinkles on the forehead, they also are completely unnecessary. We have to hide them as well. We just want a plain, simple texture. We don't want any unnecessary detail. We don't want any wrinkles or folds to be baked in the color texture, because it looks, after you render, it looks fake. It doesn't look very compelling. It looks like you've projected a photo on top of the model. But we don't want that. We want a fully 3D portrait with all the details of the texture manually added inside ZBrush. Some artists do keep these lines for the final render, but it's not really my taste. I think it doesn't look good. It looks it looks forced, it looks fake, and it's kind of cheating, to be honest, to fake your wrinkles in a color texture. I consider it cheating. Also, another reason is that if you change your lighting, for example, if you're rendering in different lightings, if you have your folds baked in your albedo, in some lightings it won't look real. It looks weird. I mean, if you try, you understand what I'm saying, but okay, I think we have there is still some cleaning to do here, but I think we can move on to work on a different area. For example, these fold near the nose. We don't need them as well. These lines around the nose. We don't want any sharp lines baked inside the texture. No shadows, no highlights, no sharp details and lines specifically. Is this Maya? No, this it's Marie. Okay guys, I will be live for 10 to 15 minutes, so if you guys have any questions, shoot. Tomorrow we will continue cleaning the texture, and probably next week we're going to work on the displacement map, or maybe shaders, I'm not sure. Maybe we should first work on shaders and then go work on the displacement. Also, we don't need this. I don't know what it is. It looks like a blemish or a red spot. Do the changes you make to albedo change the same way on all maps? No, it's just the albedo. For the displacement, you need to do the same stuff, Also, these lines around the eye, we also don't need them, because these are something that we will automatically have with subsurface scattering. It's not something that we want to have baked in the albedo map. Also, we're not sure that it matches the same detail as a reference, so it's best to just get rid of those unnecessary details. Hey Dennis. Okay, for the albedo, I'm not going to finish it right now. I'm also going to show you how to import your displacement map. It's just the same. You switch to your displacement channel, right click on the base layer, import into current layer, delete the template to see the files, multi-channel clean. Don't change anything, just import all patches. For the multi-channel, it's harder to see because it's a gray map. You can't really see what's going on. So we can add adjustment layers. Just functions the same as in Photoshop. It's the fourth icon on the layer window. If you click on add adjustment layer, you can see you have brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, and other stuff. For example, we can use brightness to make it easier to see the map. Also, let's add contrast. Change the contrast. Now you can see that it's becoming easier to see the details. Let's add, for example, gamma. You can also add gamma. You can also change the order of your layers. So the contrast is the first one, brightness, and gamma. Maybe we don't need gamma, let's just use contrast and brightness. Right. Now you can see it's a lot easier to see the details in order to clean the texture. Let's see what else we can add. You can also add levels. Let's try the levels to see. Okay, I think we can start cleaning. Let's delete gamma, and these are all we need. Let's rename the first layer to vFace so we know. Another layer, name it clean. I missed almost the whole session. Yes, Pixar Oracle, you can watch on YouTube, no problem. Alright, so we're doing some cleaning inside Marie so we can export from Marie and then import to ZBrush to work on a displacement map. But cleaning inside Marie makes it easier because in ZBrush you're not working on texture, you're working on polygons and you're working on a high poly model. It's not as easy to change the details or to clean the texture as in Marie. In Marie it's just a flat texture. You can just use the clone stamp to hide some of the details or to clean some of the spots. Alright, just the same way using the clone stamp, I'm getting rid of these lines. These green and blue lines are the same details that we deleted in albedo map. Alright, so if you remember, I told you that you have to change the source to where you want to change it. Right now it's set to the albedo, which is not relevant to this channel. Changing it to displacement, vFace paint to and also it needs to we need to change the order so that the adjustment layers also change the clean layer. So now you can see that. It's the same color as the layer beneath it. And also it's a separate layer, so if you mess up anything, you can just edit the layer. It's not something that you can fix. But in ZBrush, if you make mistakes, it's kind of harder to fix them. So make sure you do as much cleaning in Marie as you can before moving on to ZBrush. Love you from Iran. Afshin, hey. Why don't you use Substance Beta for texture? Because Marie is better. Alright guys, I think that's enough for today. If you don't have any questions, I'll see you tomorrow. Is Saturday, right? I think we can continue on Sunday. Tomorrow I probably won't go live, but or maybe I will, I'm not sure. But Sunday is more likely. So if you have any questions about Marie or anything I explained today wasn't clear, you can just ask right now. Hey, thank you, Whiskey. So basically we're just doing the same thing. We're doing the same cleaning as the albedo. We have 2 channels that we need to clean: albedo, displacement. After that we move to ZBrush. We make our shaders and connect everything to be able to render something. Thank you, Agib. Okay. That's for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, a question. Why do you prefer Marie over Substance personally? Because, I mean, I explained in one of the previous streams, there are various reasons. For example, Substance doesn't properly support 8K maps, and also it doesn't support working on 32-bit, which is something that we need for displacement. And also the layering system inside Marie is much more easier to work with compared to Substance. In Marie you can just add masks, you can add adjustment layers, you can make some changes. You have to have worked with both to understand, but Marie is a lot more intuitive, and it's more artist friendly, not necessarily user friendly, but it's more artist friendly. Substance has some advantages. It uses some procedural brushes which are cool to use, but for the real characters I think Marie is a better choice. For game characters maybe Substance is a great option, but for what we're doing right now, Marie is a better choice. And that's it. Okay guys, see you in the next one, and have a great night or day wherever you are. Bye bye.